Alright, YouTube, so I never thought I'd make a video like this, but disclaimer, if you clicked on this video, I know the title's a little misleading. I didn't really know what to call it, but if you thought that I wasn't a smoker and I started vaping and I had like this ultra immune system, that's not the case. I'm sorry. So if you feel free to just click off the video if you're disgusted with me. Boo-hoo, cry me a fucking river. But basically, I guess I'll begin with the first time I smoked. That was about 16 and a half. My friends came over to my house. Well, two of my four friends. Or two of my three. We were a group of four, we're a group of three now. What happened was one of my friends owed my other friend, and basically his parents were smokers, and he would basically repay the debt to my other friend in the form of cigarettes. So we came over, and if I call them skags, we call them skags around here. I don't know if that's a term you guys call them. But anyways, they come to my house. We're all in my yard at like maybe 10:30. We're out by the shed, an old decrepit shed in my yard that no one uses. It's like overrun by raccoons, and we're in front of it. He pulls out a pack of Mavericks, I think. He packs them, he opens them up, and that's the first time I ever had a cigarette, and I instantly fell in love with the nicotine rush. That night ended. I didn't really get a hold of the cigarettes until with that same friend, he found another means to get his fix. He would pay of-age people to buy the cigarettes for him and give them to him. And I was spending the night, maybe, I think, at his house, and we were walking around the town at night, and he pulls out a pack of Marlboro Reds. He's like, "You want one?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And, you know, my body doesn't have that tolerance to nicotine that it did at the time, and I smoked it, and I got that same, you know what it's like when you first get your first nicotine buzz. It's awesome. Don't lie, it was fucking rad. But yeah, it was like that all over again, and then within a matter of a couple weeks, I started smoking a lot. Not like a pack a day, but I think the most I'd do in a day was maybe 3/4 of a pack, or how do I say this? I smoked till only like a quarter of a pack was left. And I was aware of, all that funky stuff that they put in the cigarettes, like formaldehyde, ammonia, all those other chemical cocktails they, scrape off the floor, roll into a cigarette, and call it premium. So I stuck with American Spirits, which is a little more expensive, because, I figured, well, I won't get as bad long-term effects. But after a while, I started noticing breathing sucked. And there's three things that I absolutely hate looking back about smoking. One was the stench. It was always on my clothes, always on my skin. I always had to take a shower after I smoked because I didn't want my parents finding out I was smoking. Second was the phlegm that was all in my throat because I kept drying it out with all that smoke coming in, and all that mucus and stuff just lined my esophagus. And the third, obviously, being it was painful to breathe and my lungs literally were sore. It would hurt if I laid a certain position. So after some time in March, by the way, I am 18 years old now, so in March, my friends were my vaping friends were kind of aware of my smoking habit, and I was messing around with my friend's pen mod, not pen mod, just pen, the starter kit type stuff. he had a alright pineapple flavor, which was surprisingly good, even though I despise pineapple. And they basically said, well, why don't you still got money, so why don't we take you by the smoke shop and you'll get your starter kit. And I said, alright, and that's exactly what happened. I went in, I bought my starter kit. You know, you get the free flavor with it. I always like mint. I always get menthol flavor. End of story. But yeah, it was awesome until I think 3 weeks afterwards. The atomizer started acting up. Well, actually a week and a half into it, the atomizer started acting up. What started happening was basically the coil started burning that latex thing you put the juice around, and it would taste like rubber, just burnt rubber, and it would literally hurt my throat. So I was like, well, fuck, I'll have to buy an entire new starter kit again, because the options at the smoke shop are pretty limited. So I did a stupider move and moved on to just smoking 99-cent 3-pack cigarillos. And you're not supposed to inhale the smoke of cigarillos regularly, because they have sugar with the flavors of the cigarillo. And that made it much worse. So I finally gave in. I was like, you know what, this needs to stop. I don't want to be like all my relatives for the most part. So I bought another starter kit, and that tank started acting up, so I just bought a great tank. I just bought like an upper, not default tank. And I've been happy ever since, and I moved up to a King stainless steel mod last month, before I went on vacation. And, you know, I stopped for 2 reasons. One, I've seen what it's done to family members. Grandfather on my mother's side, so my mom's dad, died of emphysema because of smoking. My grandmother on my mother's side, mom's mom, she had breast cancer, but the fact that she smoked like a pack and a half a day probably didn't help that. God knows what my mom's uncle's problems are. Like, he probably has cancer. My dad's dad, so my grandfather on my dad's side, he has COPD from 40 plus years of smoking. He'll probably be in oxygen soon enough, and he says he probably won't live, or he gives himself another decade or 5 to 10 years to live. But the guy's like 71 anyway, and you know, the average life expectancy for a male is like mid-80s, so he wouldn't be too far off. I even I even almost lost my own father to smoking. He was a 2-pack a day smoker, and I almost lost him when I was 10. He basically couldn't breathe for some reason, something to do with smoking, and he let it go for 2 days, and it was midnight. He got us all up. He's like, we're going to the ER. I need to go to the ER. Something's wrong. And basically it was because of smoking, and they said that if he probably waited one more day, he probably would have been dead. And he's the only person I personally know that's cut cold turkey and actually cut cold turkey. And the second reason being that it obviously, I wanted to improve my health because I knew it was safer than smoking. I knew that I saw a lot of testimonies, and here I am now making my own. But my lungs, that was March, but I probably haven't smoked regularly since, yeah, probably March actually. Or early April, like really early April. And my lungs are great. I can taste food again, my skin isn't vampire white. And I feel like I'm breathing as good as I did when I wasn't smoking regularly. Excuse me. Hiccups. But if you're considering quitting smoking, don't do the nicotine patches, don't do the Nicoderm gum or whatever the fuck it's labeled as. Do vape pen or an e-cigarette, but preferably a vape pen. How you may not even, you may quit cigarettes, but you may still use the vape, which is still a lot safer because the tobacco now has been genetically modified to put a chemical compound that's in antidepressants, which has an addictive property, which causes that classic angry mood swing withdrawals. And yes, I've stopped vaping for long periods of time. I recently went a week. I had no violent withdrawals or anything. The most was maybe a minute psychological want for it. But, you know, I wasn't aggravated, agitated, pissed off, or anything. So, please just switch to vaping and wean yourself off of that. You know, scale down the nicotine levels every month maybe, and you'll probably quit. You probably won't quit cold turkey. You'll probably go back on it. So if you're thinking about quitting smoking, or just a safer alternative, if you want to still enjoy the nicotine buzz, go to vaping. Am I still with the nicotine's grasp? Of course, I am addicted to nicotine. I know this. But at least I'm not smoking, motherfuckers. Anyways, this is my testimony, and I'm thankful I switched. Peace out. Much love.